Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about flower and its parts for class 9 ICSE. So we have studied this in the junior classes that each flower is consisting of majorly four whorls, and these four whorls are calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. But there are some new words we will add in this chapter. First, we are starting with the stalk of the flower. Suppose I'm drawing a flower over here. So this structure which will be making the stalk of the flower, just a minute, which will be making the stalk of the flower is basically called as pedicel. So a flower which is having pedicel is called as pedicellate, and the flower which is not having the pedicel is called as sessile. So when you can see in this diagram, it is already given that a flower which is having pedicel is called as pedicellate. Just look over here. This is structure I am talking about. So this is called as pedicel. So in a pedicellate flower, pedicel is present, whereas in sessile flower, you will never find a pedicel. Next, when we are moving from outside towards inner side, we will be getting the four whorls. The first whorl which you can see over here is called as calyx. Now this calyx is what? Calyx is usually green in color, making the outermost whorl of the flower, and because it is green in color, it can basically perform the function of photosynthesis, and it is protecting the reproductive parts of the flower, so protective in function. So there could be two functions of the calyx. One, it is protecting the inner walls, and second, it is performing photosynthesis if it is green. Usually it is green in color, but in some of the cases, as in case of mustard, even calyx is turning yellow. So that is called as petaloid sepal. Unit of calyx, you can see here, it is called as what? Unit of calyx is called as sepal. So this sepal is a single structure of these four or five combined structure you can see. If these sepals are free from each other, the term we are using is polysepalous, as in case of mustard. And if these are fused together, as in case of China rose, if you have seen, these are fused in this way. So if sepals are fused in this structure in this way, then this is called as gamo condition. Gamo means fused here, then it is called as what? Fused gamosepalous calyx. Persistent means in case of brinjal, if you have seen that we will be having this kind of structure in the brinjal which is attached to the fruit of the brinjal. So this structure is called as what? Persistent calyx. Sometimes you will find it in the ladyfinger also. Next, we are moving to the second whorl, which is called as corolla. When we talk about corolla, corolla is colorful whorl of the flower. It usually attract insects for pollination. Unit of corolla is petal. What is the unit of corolla? The unit of corolla is petal. Again, if petals are free from each other, as in case of mustard, we use the term polypetalous. If it is fused, as in case of petunia or members of Solanaceae, you will find it fused. So that condition is called as gamopetalous. These petals may be of various shapes and colors, as you know, but the major function is attracting insects for pollination. If you will go for another function of petals, you can simply say that petals are responsible for protection also. That's why it is called as non-essential whorl, because it will be protecting the inner reproductive parts of the flower. Now let's move to the very important whorl, that is third whorl of the flower, which is the male reproductive organ. This male reproductive organ of the flower is called as androecium. Its unit is called as stamen. Now this stamen, men is there, so you have to always remember that stamen is the male reproductive part of the flower. Its main role is to develop pollen grains. Now, if you will see the diagram of a stamen, we will be having this knob-like structure. So this knob-like structure is called as anther. Inside this anther, pollen grains are developed, whereas this thread-like structure is called as filament. So in some of the cases, you will find that anther is having two lobes, as in mustard, it is called as bilobed. But if you will see in China rose, these anthers are not actually bilobed. It is having kidney-shaped structure. This kind of structure you may get mushroom-like, very minute. Then it is called as kidney-shaped, or that is called as monothecous anther. And this is called as dithecous anther. The main function of the anther is to develop pollen grains, and these pollen grains are consisting of male gametes that we will discuss later on. Now, when we talk about the classification of stamen based on adhesion, suppose if all the stamens are free from each other, as you can see, filaments are also separate from each other and anthers are also seen individually. So, this condition is called as polyandrous, as in mustard. But if they are fused in one or many groups, we can name them variously. Suppose if all the filaments are fused together and anther is free. So here you have to see, as in case of China rose, if you remember, in China rose all the stamens will fuse together and will form a staminal tube. If you remember this diagram of China rose, these kidney shaped structures at the outer boundary of the tube is actually the monoadelphous condition, where all the filaments of all stamens, infinite stamens are there, will fuse together to form a staminal tube inside which carpel is present. So this condition is called as monoadelphous. In pea plant, you will see that 9 stamens are present in one group and one is separate. So this condition where 9 stamens are present in one group and one stamen is present separately, this is called as 9 plus 1 condition found in case of pea family. Then we are having polyadelphous condition where stamens are grouped in more than two, or you can say in many groups. Then you will get in case of the bombax. There is one additional and very special condition of synandrous and syngenaceous. Synandrous condition you must have observed in case of pumpkin, where you must have seen anther as well as filament. These two things are fused together and it is making a bundle knob like structure. Here you can see the anthers are fused together as well as filaments are also fused together. So some knob like structure you will be finding. This is called as synandrous condition, as in case of cucurbita pumpkin. But one more condition is there which you must have seen in case of sunflower, which is not mentioned in this slide, but I'll be trying to draw it. Here the stamens are making a crown-like structure fused in this way. So all the stamens are fused together and the filaments you can see are individually visible over here. So this condition is called as syngenaceous. So depending upon the adhesion, we are having these many types of stamens. One more condition is there. Suppose if stamens are attached to this petal, this is a petal, and suppose stamen is attached to the petal, then this condition is called as epipetalous condition, where stamens are attached to the petal. Let's move to the last word, that is called as gynoecium. Gynoecium is the female reproductive part. We write the symbol this way, and it will be having the unit as carpel or pistil. So this carpel is having three major parts: stigma, style, and ovary. Now inside ovary you may find an additional structure which is called as ovule, which later on is converted to seed after fertilization. Now, depending upon the number of carpel, we can classify them as monocarpellary, bicarpellary, tricarpellary, and multi. Monocarpellary means it is having only one carpel. As in case of pea family, you will get only one carpel, monocarpellary. Bicarpellary, you will get in case of mustard. Two carpels are there. Multicarpellary or tri to multi, you can say. If you have seen cucumber, in case of cucumber, you must have seen this kind of a structure. Now, these are three individual carpels present in the cucumber, and in the center, you will be having the ovules attached. So, this is tricarpellary ovary. As in case of China rose, you will get pentacarpellary or multicarpellary ovary. Then we are having these two conditions, A and B. In A condition, if carpels are fused, as in case of this diagram I have drawn, or you may draw pentacarpellary ovary also, which will be having 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if you are finding these five carpel, one, two, three, four, and five carpels are there which are fused together, then this condition is called as what? This condition is called as multicarpellary syncarpous ovary. And here in the center, as in case of China rose, you will get ovules attached. So basically the function of carpel is to produce egg, but this egg is present inside the embryo sac, which is an additional structure present inside the ovule, which we will discuss later on in chapter pollination. So here basically just a final reminder that each flower is having the four valves: calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. Calyx unit is sepal, corolla unit is petal, androecium unit is stamen, and gynoecium unit is carpel. Now, if sepals are free from each other, we use the term polysepalous. If sepals are fused, then gamosepalous. If petals are free from each other, polypetalous. If petals are fused, gamopetalous. Stamens, if free from each other, then polyandrous. If all filaments are attached in one group, monoadelphous. If all filaments are attached in two groups, diadelphous. If all filaments are attached in many groups, it's called as polyadelphous. In carpel, we have two conditions. If carpels are fused with each other, syncarpous. If carpels are free from each other, apocarpous. These are the basic terms which we should remember when we are studying any description about flower. Now let's move to some definitions which will be asked from you in the exam. First, what is thalamus? As I discussed, thalamus is a structure, or you can say stalk of the flower with which the flower is attached. Sorry, thalamus is basically the tip of the pedicel. If this is pedicel stalk, this structure is called as thalamus, which is solen portion of the pedicel. Now, in this solen portion, you will be finding attachment of various valves like sepals are present over here, petals are present over here, the stamen could be present, and carpel. So this is basically a structure which consists of all the floral valves at its base. Now, after this thalamus, we will be having the pedicel. As I told, the flower with the stalk is called as pedicellate. Flower without stalk, sessile. Complete flower is a flower in which all the four valves are present. That is called as complete flower. Best example is mustard. Incomplete flower is a flower in which any of these four valves are missing. It could be pumpkin, it could be papaya. Then perfect flower. In most of the cases, students are confused with the perfect and complete flower. But perfect flower is a flower which is consisting of stamen as well as carpel both. Means bisexual flower or hermaphrodite flower is also called as a perfect flower. Whereas in imperfect flower, either stamen or carpel is present but never both. So that is called as incomplete flower. Now, essential words, as I discussed earlier, that the words which are directly involved in reproduction, androecium and gynoecium, are called as essential words, whereas the words which are protecting these reproductive parts are called as non-essential words. For example, calyx and corolla. Bisexual flower I discussed, hermaphrodite, as in case of China rose, mustard, stamen, and carpel are present in the same flower. Unisexual flower will be of two types. Unisexual means the flower which is consisting of either stamen or carpel. So when we talk about unisexual flower, that could be staminate and pistillate flower. Now, if staminate and pistillate flowers are present on the same plant, mono means one. So if this is present in the same plant, then it is called as monoecious, as in case of cucurbita, pumpkin. But if it is present on two different plants, as in case of date palm and papaya, then it is called as dioecious. And these 2 points are very important for examination point of view. From this chapter, they may ask you to draw diagrams, they may ask you the definitions, and some more special terms are there which we will be discussing in the next class, which will be asked from this chapter. One more additional term is there, apicalyx. It's given here, so let's discuss this. Apicalyx is an additional whorl of the sepals, you can say, present outside the calyx, which is called as apicalyx, and its unit is called as episepals. Now, if you remember China rose, China rose is having, you can say, fused calyx, but outside the calyx an additional whorl is present, and that additional whorl is not fused together. So when we talk about China rose, I'm drawing it with the red color itself. These are the sepals of China rose, but at the base you will find that there are these separate structures. This kind of structure is present, which is called as episepals. So this way we are finishing up with the content of today. In next class we will be discussing some more important terms. Let's move to the next slide. Thank you.